Why you fear change more than failure. Change feels scary. Part 1. Why does change feel so terrifying? Even when you know your current life isn't making you happy. You know the job is draining you. You know the relationship isn't healthy. You know the routine is keeping you stuck. You know there is something you should change, but you don't. You tell yourself you're being realistic. You tell yourself now isn't the right time. You tell yourself things might get better. But sometimes, you already know the truth. You're not staying because things are good. You're staying because change feels scary. Imagine a woman named Emily. For 12 years, Emily worked at the same company. She hated her job. Every Sunday night, she felt anxious thinking about Monday morning. Every morning, she told herself she couldn't keep doing this. But she stayed. One day, a friend asked her a simple question. If you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? Emily didn't hesitate. I'd leave. Then her friend asked, so what's stopping you? Emily became quiet. The answer wasn't money. It wasn't opportunity. It wasn't even her family. It was fear. Fear of making the wrong decision. Fear of losing security. Fear of starting over. Fear of discovering that she wasn't good enough. So Emily chose something familiar. Not because it was better, but because it was known. And this is something millions of people do every day. They choose familiar pain over unfamiliar possibility. The Stoics understood that life is constantly changing. Nothing stays exactly the same. People change. Bodies change. Careers change. Fortunes change. Circumstances change. The question isn't whether life will change. It will. The question is whether you will meet change with fear or with courage. Welcome to Timeless Quotes TV. If you enjoy Stoicism, psychology, philosophy, and timeless wisdom for living with greater clarity, consider subscribing and joining us on this journey. Because today we're asking, why do we fear change more than failure? And what if the life you're afraid to leave is exactly what is preventing you from becoming who you could be? Part 2. The human brain has a powerful preference for the familiar, even when the familiar isn't good for us. Your brain doesn't always ask, is this life fulfilling? It often asks, is this life predictable? Predictability feels safe. You know your routine. You know your job. You know your problems. You know what tomorrow will probably look like. Change destroys that certainty. Suddenly there are questions. What if I fail? What if people judge me? What if I regret it? What if I lose money? What if I'm not capable? What if everything gets worse? Notice something. Your mind is creating dozens of negative futures, even though none of them have happened. This is one of the greatest tricks of fear. It makes possibility feel like probability. You imagine the worst outcome so vividly that your body reacts as if it is already happening. Your heart races. Your stomach tightens. Your thoughts accelerate. And suddenly staying where you are feels like the intelligent choice. But there is another psychological trap: loss aversion. Humans tend to feel losses more strongly than equivalent gains. So you focus on what you might lose, instead of what you might gain. You think, what if I lose my salary? Instead of, what if I build a career I actually enjoy? What if I fail? Instead of, what if I finally learn what I'm capable of? And this is why people sometimes remain in unhappy situations for years. The pain is familiar. The alternative is uncertain. But familiar doesn't mean safe. A cage can become comfortable simply because you've lived inside it long enough. The Stoics understood something important. You don't control everything that happens, but you do control how you meet what happens. Change is not automatically good, but resisting every change is not automatically wise either. Sometimes the greatest risk is refusing to move. Part 3. The first timeless lesson is this: change is not the enemy. Resistance is often the source of suffering. Life changes whether you approve of it or not. Your body changes. Your children grow. Businesses evolve. Relationships change. Opportunities disappear. New ones appear. You can fight reality or learn to move with it. The second lesson is that fear is not always a warning. Sometimes fear simply means, this is unfamiliar. Your body can produce fear before your mind has evidence that you're actually in danger. So don't automatically obey fear. Listen to it. Examine it. Then decide. The third lesson is that failure is often more useful than stagnation. Failure gives you information. It tells you what didn't work. It forces adaptation. It teaches humility. It reveals your weaknesses. But staying stuck can teach you nothing except how to remain stuck. You can fail while moving forward. You cannot grow while refusing to move. The fourth lesson is that identity must be flexible. Sometimes we don't fear change itself. We fear losing the identity we've built. I am the successful employee. I am the responsible one. I am the person who never takes risks. I am the person everyone depends on. But if an old identity is preventing a new life, you may need to outgrow it. You are not required to remain the person you were 5 years ago. The fifth lesson is perhaps the most important. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action while fear is still present. You don't need to feel ready. You don't need complete certainty. You don't need a guarantee that everything will work. You need enough courage to take the next step. Because sometimes, clarity doesn't come before action. It comes because of action. Part 4. Now think about change in the age of AI. The world is changing faster than many people have ever experienced. Jobs are changing. Industries are changing. Skills are becoming obsolete. New businesses are appearing. Entire careers are being redesigned. And this creates a new psychological problem. You can no longer build your entire identity around one stable career path and assume it will remain unchanged for decades. AI can make people feel replaceable. That fear is real. But there is another way to look at it. Change can remove old opportunities, but it can also create opportunities that didn't exist before. The person who refuses to learn because learning feels uncomfortable may become more vulnerable than the person who keeps adapting. This doesn't mean chasing every trend. It means developing the ability to learn, to adapt, to remain curious, to start again when necessary. The future will belong to people who can tolerate uncertainty without becoming paralyzed by it. And this applies beyond careers. Relationships change. Cities change. Technology changes. Our priorities change. Even our understanding of ourselves changes. The Stoics didn't promise stability. They taught resilience. Marcus Aurelius faced war, political conflict, illness, loss, and uncertainty. His philosophy wasn't, "How can I make sure nothing changes?" It was, "How can I remain steady when everything changes?" That question may be more important today than ever, because you cannot control the speed of change, but you can control your willingness to learn, adapt, and respond. The world is changing. Your choice is not whether you change. Your choice is whether you change consciously, or wait until circumstances force you to. Part 5. So how do you become less afraid of change? Start small. You don't need to destroy your entire life tomorrow. Change one thing. Take a different route. Learn a new skill. Have the conversation you've been avoiding. Spend one day without your usual routine. Do something uncomfortable on purpose. Your brain needs evidence that uncertainty is survivable. Second, separate risk from discomfort. Something can feel uncomfortable without being dangerous. Starting a new job may feel uncomfortable. Talking to someone honestly may feel uncomfortable. Learning something difficult may feel uncomfortable. But discomfort is not the same as danger. Third, ask a better question. Instead of, "What if this goes wrong?" Ask, "What will I learn if it doesn't go perfectly?" That single question changes the meaning of failure. Failure becomes information, not identity. Fourth, imagine staying exactly where you are, not changing for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. What does your life look like? Are you proud of that future? Or are you simply comfortable enough to avoid confronting it? Sometimes the fear of change becomes smaller when you compare it with the cost of staying the same. And finally, stop waiting to feel fearless. You probably never will. The goal isn't to eliminate fear. The goal is to become stronger than the fear. Take one step, then another. Let confidence come from evidence. Every time you do something difficult and survive it, you teach your brain, "I can handle change." Part 6. If I wanted to become more comfortable with change, I would use a few simple tools. First, keep a change journal. Write down something that changed recently. Then write, "What did I fear? What actually happened? What did I learn?" You'll often discover that your imagination was more frightening than reality. Second, create a personal learning system. Choose one skill you can improve every month. Read. Take a course. Practice. Use AI as a learning assistant. Ask questions. Test ideas. Build small projects. The goal isn't to know everything. It's to become someone who can learn anything. Third, use AI strategically. Don't only ask AI to make your current work faster. Ask it, "What skills will become more valuable in my industry? What should I learn next? What assumptions about my career might be outdated? What opportunities could this technology create?" Use technology to increase adaptability rather than reinforce comfort. And finally, keep a simple rule. Never let comfort make every decision for you. Sometimes choose the difficult path, not because suffering is good, but because growth requires friction. You don't need to become reckless. You need to become adaptable. Because the safest person in a changing world isn't necessarily the person with the most security. It may be the person who knows they can start again. Part 7. Let's return to Emily. For 12 years, she told herself she couldn't leave. Then one day, she finally did something small. She updated her resume. That's it. She didn't quit immediately. She didn't know what would happen. But for the first time, she allowed herself to imagine another future. A few months later, she accepted a new position. It wasn't perfect. The first weeks were uncomfortable. She questioned herself. She missed the familiarity of her old routine. But something had changed. She was no longer living according to fear. She was choosing. And that distinction matters. You don't need certainty to move forward. You need courage to accept uncertainty. Failure may hurt. But sometimes failure is temporary. You learn. You adjust. You try again. Fear of change can last for years. It can quietly steal opportunities while convincing you that it is protecting you. So ask yourself tonight, what am I afraid to change? And what is that fear costing me? Maybe it's a job. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's your routine. Maybe it's a belief about yourself. Maybe it's simply the person you have become comfortable being. You don't have to change everything tomorrow, but you do need to be honest about one thing. Are you staying because it's right, or because it's familiar? Tell us in the comments. What is one change you've been afraid to make? And what do you think you're really afraid of losing? Your answer may help someone else realize they aren't the only person standing at the edge of change. If this video gave you a new perspective, subscribe to Timeless Quotes TV. Here, we explore Stoicism, psychology, self-mastery, inner peace, and timeless wisdom for navigating a world that never stops changing. And in the next episode, we'll explore another difficult truth. Why letting go is so difficult. Because sometimes, the hardest part of change isn't moving forward. It's releasing what you already know you can no longer carry. Until then, don't wait until you feel fearless. Don't wait until everything is certain. And don't confuse comfort with safety. Change feels scary, but staying the same forever can be even more frightening.